Welcome to Becoming CarmaQuanTarot. My journey didn't start the way you might think. It started with a search for protection instead of fear. Today, I work to bring you messages guided by love, light, and the highest good. Not what we want to hear, but what we need to know. I'm your host, and I'm finally realized I wasn't being followed, I was being supported. In the last episode, we talked about knowing. Those moments where information just arrived in the way my family labeled that intuition as something evil. But as I got older, the experience shifted. It wasn't just about knowing things anymore, it was about experiencing them. I went from having a wonderful brain to having uninvited guests in my room, and the fear I had lived with as a child turned into a lifelong state of hypervigilance. It really began to ramp up in high school. Like a lot of teenagers, my friends and I started experimenting with seances and Ouija boards. We didn't even have a real one, we used a makeshift board. To this day, those friends swear I was the one moving the glass, but they didn't understand the reality of what was happening. I wasn't moving anything. I was the one who ended up with something attached to me. That was the first time I felt a presence that felt negative or intrusive. I remember being so angry and exhausted because I couldn't sleep. There was the constant noise like someone was outside with a stick, rubbing it up and down against the air conditioner unit. It was loud, persistent, and kept me awake all night long. I would wake my friends up and ask, "Do you not hear that?" But they had no clue what I was talking about. I was completely alone in that noise. It wasn't just the sounds, though. The boundaries were gone. The spirit would come to me while I was sleeping and hold my hand. It would try to wake me up constantly, trying to talk to me, and it would simply just wouldn't leave me alone. Because I had been taught that these things were evil, I didn't see this as a gift or a calling. I saw it as a haunting. I was terrified and just wanted to be left in peace. I'll never forget the night a friend and I stayed at our grandmother's house. We were playing with a Ouija board, and a spirit came through that absolutely freaked us both out. We were so scared that we knocked over the little TV dinner stand we were using as a table. We scrambled out of the room, and I remember having to jump over the Ouija board so I wouldn't step on it on the way out. When we finally got brave enough to go back in the room, the board was just sitting there face up, and the planchette was perfectly centered on it in the middle of the board as it was all ready to play again. There was no way it could have landed that way on its own. I eventually moved away from the apartment and thought I had finally gotten rid of the presents. I remember telling my younger brother, whatever you do not play with the Ouija board, do not have a seance, do not do anything to open this house up to the devil. But when I came home from college for Christmas break, the first night I was there, I woke up to someone holding my hand, and then I heard the voice, "I'm back. Did you miss me?" I was so livid. I went to my brother's room and started screaming at him and his friend, trying to beat the shit out of him because I knew he had opened the door back up. It took 6 or 7 years that for my brother to finally admit his friends had done a seance. He didn't believe me until he saw how pissed I was. He actually said he didn't even think anything about it because he thought I was crazy. So when I told him not to do it, it didn't even register in his brain that something could really happen if he did. But for years, my only defense was prayer, but prayer wasn't about faith or talking to God. It was a mechanism for survival. I spent many nights awake praying, just make it go away. I don't want to see it. Prayer taught me how to shut everything down, how to push the experiences away, and how to stay guarded. I built a wall to keep the spirits out, but the wall also kept me trapped in fear for decades. When you spend your life trying to survive the things you see and hear, you don't realize that the fear is actually coming from what you've lived through, not necessarily what is happening in the moment. I wasn't just afraid of spirits, I was afraid of the intrusion. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the light bulb moments where that wall finally started to crack, and I began to realize that I wasn't being followed, I was being supported. Living with this uninvited experiences is like living in a house with no locks on the doors. Every time you start to sleep, someone walks into your room and starts talking or touching your hand. You don't know who they are or what they want. And because you've been told your whole life they're dangerous, you spend all your energy trying to board up the windows, hide under the covers. You aren't using the house, you're trying to survive being inside it. I'm no longer reacting to what I lived through. I'm listening to what I'm being guided towards. Thank you for joining me on this journey of becoming CarmaQuanTarot. We'll continue the story next time, and remember, words are spells, energy is sacred, and intention is the magic.